What's going on, guys? Welcome back. NFL commentary today. A little bit different intro because it is Memorial Day. It's a day to reflect, appreciate the men and women that have served our country. One of them actually in our sim community, Resolve. I'll put a link down to his channel in the description. Recommend you go give him a watch or two and thank him for what he's done. You know, a lot of debates happen in terms of why or when or how we should become involved in wars, but the important thing to remember is the people that serve our country, they don't have the option to say, well, I don't want to go fight here, or I don't want to be deployed there because I don't believe in that. They have to go anyway. It's a thankless job. It impacts that person, their families, their friends, their job, and I know it's often overlooked. I've actually lost a friend of mine in Iraq probably 6 or 7 years ago. There's not a day that really doesn't go by that I don't think about him and what he meant to our community. And how devastating it was to have someone from such a small town be lost in such a tragic way. I always make it a point to stop at the Veteran Cemetery. If you follow me on Twitter this morning, I'll probably post a picture as I go over there, and to reflect back on the people that gave their lives, that devoted their lives to serving our country, and how important they are to me and what it means to me to be able to do what I want to do in my free time, to talk NFL, to talk video games, to create these videos. For you guys to have the ability over 30,000 times in the last 10 days to watch the content I create. It's so important that we reflect and remember those that make that possible when sometimes they're not always on the foremost, maybe part of our thoughts. So with that said, NFL commentary, Tampa Bay Bucks, tough prelude there, but I want to talk about the Bucks secondary. You know, I think a lot of people are excited about the Buccaneers, obviously, but if you look at the mismanagement they have, it's really hard for me to think of another team that's shown so poor management making decisions. I mean, if we talk about their secondary, the investment they've had with really nothing to show for it. I think most recently you can go back to Sean Goldston, 2 years removed from a huge free agent deal. He got traded to Washington. They swapped a 7th-round pick and a 2016 6th-round pick. You know, the Bucks basically paid Goldston $18 million already, and despite the fact that he's not going to suit up for him, they're going to hand over $4 million more. And before he went there, the talk was that Goldston really wasn't suited for, you know, today's game, if you will. He's a hard hitter. He's drawn a lot of penalties, some fair, some unfair. But, you know, that's the risk and reward you take when you sign him. And the Bucks, in my opinion, have a track record of releasing players that continue to play at a high level after they left Tampa. Maybe no better example than Darrelle Revis. It took them $16 million. A 2013 first-rounder and a 2014 fourth-rounder for a single season's work. You know, they let him go. He kind of signs a one-year prove-it deal with New England. He kept his play at an elite level. Now he's back in New York with a huge contract. That's a first-round pick spent. You take a look at what they've done in the draft. 17th overall pick in the 2012 draft, Mark Barron. He gets shown the door after 2 years. Got paid over $10 million before he goes to St. Louis in exchange for a 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick. I mean, those three alone is a total of 2 first-rounders, nearly $50 million. And with that type of money, I don't care where you spend it. You better be putting up a devastatingly effective group that ranks among the top of the league. You know, the problem isn't just the free agent signings, though. It's the acquisitions, the retention of players. Think back to 2012. Eric Wright comes in, signs a 5-year, $37.5 million contract. 16 months later, they're trying to trade him to Tampa Bay for just a 4th-rounder. He fails his physical. The Bucks get stuck holding his rights. They end up releasing him outright. The exact opposite side of the spectrum, you look at a misevaluation of talent with Aqib Talib, 2008 first-round pick. He spent 4 seasons there, built a reputation as a budding elite defensive back, and honestly seemed to be one of the few players that could work themselves out of the shadow of Rondé Barber as the defensive face of the Bucks. You know, much like Revis, he ends up in New England. The Bucks did get compensated for that. They had a 2013 7th-round pick and a 4th-round pick for him, but despite the 4-game substance abuse suspension, Talib spent 2 seasons in New England, asserted himself as a dependable player, high-level player, made the Pro Bowl his final year there, and he goes on, draws interest from several teams before he signs a 6-year, $57 million contract, $26 million guaranteed, to go to Denver where, you know, he continued to play at a high level. It's interesting when you look at situations like that. When you talk about how players that come into an organization are going to be successful, and you look at just a colossal failure, in my opinion, in terms of how a team can put players in a position Players can combine players' chemistry. Players can make a unit that can go out and be successful. And it's hard to create a culture of success, I think, if you have situations like this has occurred. I think other players look at this. When you draft somebody, they don't have the ability to say yay or no whether they want to go. They just have to go, unless you're John Elway and it's 1983. But for the most part, I fear the Tampa Bay Bucs being successful because of the things that I've seen and I've focused on. I'd love to know your guys' opinions on it. I appreciate you checking this out. I'll be back in the week with more content.